Hi, everyone. Okay, welcome back to the podcast. If you're watching this on YouTube, hi, hello. If you're new to my work, I am Giselle Plamondon. I'm an astrologer and human design guide. I have a background in therapy and I work with women primarily. So I love to talk about the experience of womanhood and being a magical girl in a material world. And so something that I've been thinking about a lot is this idea of being a brat, okay? This is a muscle that I have had to really develop and stretch within myself, and it's a muscle that I do a lot of work helping my clients develop. Every year in my, client orbit, we do something called Bratty Girl June, which is where we really expand our capacity to be a brat. And so I'm doing a Bratty Girl June challenge. I'll link that in the description below so you can join us. It's free. It's 2 weeks of journal prompts, videos, audios, me really helping you to expand in this energy. But today I want to talk about why it's important to develop this and what I mean too, because I think a lot of times when we hear the word brat, maybe before I'm so thankful that Brat Summer happened, because that really changed the cultural experience around the word brat. Before then, when I would tell women, okay, you need to be a brat, there was this visceral thing, where they would freak out around this word and what it means to be a brat. And so my definition of a brat is actually just an assertive woman with high agency. So I think that in order to do bratty girl energy well, you have to have a ton of self-respect, but you also have to be very socially intelligent. I am not about, if you come into my circle or my orbit and you are entitled, you're mean, you're rude, you're unkind, that's not the vibe. That's not what we're looking for, okay? So in my world and the way that I work with this energy is a brat is a woman who just knows herself so well. And she knows how to speak up for what she wants, what she needs, what she desires. And she knows how to do that in a way that is really loving and kind, okay? So I have created a list of 7 reasons you need to be a brat, okay? Before I get into that, let's talk about the consequences of not activating this part of you. Most women are doing something called self-silencing. There's been a little bit of research on this, at least in the 90s. I don't know if they're still studying it. I'm sure they are, but maybe they're not calling it that. And self-silencing is what happens when we dilute or diminish ourselves in order to make other people comfortable or happy. Okay. And so a lot of women do this in their relationships. They do this in their friendships. They even do this at work. And, there's tons of consequences of that. One of them is massive cognitive dissonance, right? When I was young, I remember being 18, 19, 25 and presenting this very good girl aura to the world. And I do think there's part of that is natural for me. I think I will always have this more sweet, demure aura to me. I'm 34 and I still have this. I really don't think it's going away. But I really leaned into that because there was a ton of safety in that. I learned early on, okay, I can be beautiful, I can be smart, I can be successful, and if I am really humble and really invisible, honestly, in my pursuit towards those things, people don't step on me too much, right? And so it was my way of being able to be deeply attuned to myself without it being threatening towards other people. And so I had a ton of cognitive dissonance in my 20s, especially because I knew that I was capable, right? I knew that I was smart, that I was driven, that I have a work ethic that would make most men probably I don't know, shrivel up and die. Unless I do not have a work ethic for hard physical labor. So don't get me to come over and help you plant your tomatoes because that might not happen. But when it comes to the things that I want to do, I am super driven. So I knew like, okay, I'm confident. I have drive, I have ambition, I am intelligent, I'm resourceful, I am capable, right? And I'm presenting this maiden-esque energy and aura to the world. And that energy was not totally off. There's a lot of parts of me that still are that. I think I will always be sweet. I'm a little bit like, I'm more go with the flow. I'm very type B. I'm not neurotic at all. I'm very calm. I'm very relaxed, all of those things. But I felt like nobody knew me because I really wasn't in my power, and I was making myself small in every room that I would enter. I was always looking at like, okay, how do I be invisible? How do I be a wallflower? How do I not get noticed? And that did not work. Honestly, it didn't work. It just made me like, I came across as this like mysterious, aloof black cat at best. And I came across as a bitch at worst. And that was my biggest fear. At that time in my life, being called a bitch was the thing I was the most afraid of. And so it wasn't until I started to really lean into assertiveness and developed a capacity for sharing my desires, knowing my desires, sharing my truth, being honest, being blunt. I wouldn't say I'm not brutally honest. I'm not like, I won't say mean things to you even if they're true. Like, that's not my vibe. But when I learned how to say, hey, I don't like that. Or, hey, can we do it this way? When I learned to have an opinion, when I learned to have a standard, when I learned to really hold myself, and when I learned, okay, it's okay for me to take up space. It's okay for me to have a fucking personality, to have an identity. I was also so boring before. Like, so boring because I was terrified of hurting someone's feelings and stepping on someone's toes and saying the wrong thing and like all of these different things. That's another conversation. But the cost of that is cognitive dissonance, right? Because there's these two parts of self that are not matching, right? And the way that you're behaving is not necessarily the way that you feel internally, and that creates anxiety. At least it did for me. In the long run, it's really bad for your health, right? You're more likely to get stressed out, burnt out, develop certain autoimmune diseases and things like that. Like self-silencing is very, very bad for us. It creates anxiety, depression, and there's newly a link surrounding autoimmune diseases. And it makes us miserable. All those people that you know that are self-silencing and trying to make themselves really small and not having needs or desires or whatever, they blow up. I'm telling you, as someone who used to be a couples therapist, they blow up in their 40s because they can't take it anymore, okay? Especially women, you know, when we go through perimenopause and menopause and things start shifting hormonally and we wake up and we recognize, holy fuck, I have not lived my own life. I have lived somebody else's life, okay? So what I am trying to save you from here is your life having to blow up in your 40s or 30s. I think we're getting there a little bit sooner. And I'm trying to help you have healthier relationships, more money, more confidence, and much less neuroticism and anxiety, okay? I am much less neurotic than I was at 22. And even then, I wasn't really that neurotic, but I was very anxious. I'm way happier. So here are 7 reasons that every woman needs to be a brat. Okay? An assertive woman who speaks her needs, who's not afraid of conflict, who is still loving, still kind. Okay? So bratty women get their needs met. Okay? A bratty woman is going to walk in the room and go, okay, and wait, I need to say something here. It's not about like always, you don't want to be the person that's always like, can you do this? And I don't like this, and turn off the lights, and you don't want to be that because that's deeply boring. It's deeply annoying, and you won't have any friends. Okay. So you have to be selectively bratty. You have to know what are the like non-negotiables in order for me. Here's the thing. I walk into maybe not every space, but important spaces to me, especially if I'm going to be in that space for a while. And I go, okay, what is required here for me to be my happiest, most effervescent version of self? And the reason I ask myself it in that way is because that's my most authentic self. Like, I know that I am in my authentic path when I am naturally happy, naturally effervescent, and just have this like bubbliness to me. That's who I am at my best. For you, it might not be that, but whoever you are when you're at your best, you have to ask yourself, what needs to happen here in order for me to be that version of me, right? And so it might be, I mean, I don't know, I can't even think of things off the top of my head. Like some of mine are, I need to be in like a clean, beautiful environment. If I'm in an environment that is like overstimulating, dirty, like unhygienic, things like that, I am not my best self by any stretch of means. And I can get quite like overstimulated and irritated and just like I'm not myself. So I am a brat in the sense of if you're planning a vacation with me and you are one of those people that's like, it doesn't matter where we sleep, we're going to sleep in this dingy ass hotel. I'm not sleeping there with you. You can sleep there. I'm going to get the 4-star hotel down the block, or probably now the 5-star hotel down the block. Okay. And so you have to know what your non-negotiables are in terms of what is really important for you to speak up about. And you have to have the skills to be able to do that in a way that isn't shaming the other person or being unkind. I would never say, ew, how dare you want to sleep in that dingy ass 1-star hotel? I understand that we all have different things that are important to us and different values and different ways that certain spaces impact us. And so it's about knowing how to get your needs met in a way that is still socially responsible, mature, and kind, but not doing the thing that a lot of women do, which is go, I'll just suck it up. Because you know what happens when you suck it up? You're a miserable wench. You're so hard to be with, and no one wants you on the holiday now because you are not happy. And so bratty women get their needs met. They know what their needs are. They know which needs are important to be met. They know when it's okay for them to be flexible and when it's not okay for them to be flexible. And they listen to that. They are attuned to themselves in that way. Okay. Second, bratty women have happier marriages. There's a ton of research on this. Again, I'm not saying be entitled. Especially if you date men or you want to marry men, they do not like entitlement. No one likes entitlement, but they're a little bit more sensitive to it, I think. But women who are assertive, who have high standards, who will hold out for a person who is a good fit for them, and who really are not conflict avoidant, those women tend to get better partners on average, and they end up in happier marriages. Especially the reverse is true. There's not as much research maybe on the assertive woman and what that shows up like in relationships. Actually, a lot of the research is the happiest relationships. John and Julie Gottman did this research. The happiest relationships are between one partner. So they usually, I think they only study heterosexual couples, but I'm not sure. But a woman who speaks up for what she wants and a man who can accept influence. That's the recipe for a happy relationship. Okay. And so bratty women have happier marriages, okay? Because they know what they want. They know what their non-negotiables are. They have boundaries. They are, assertive. They're not passive aggressive. They're not playing all these weird manipulative games that are really unattractive, to be honest. So I think bratty women also have this ability to remain magnetic, radiant, and attractive and sexy to their partners because they have a fully developed self, okay? They have self-agency. They have some autonomy, okay? And that is really deeply attractive, especially long-term. So bratty women have happier, better relationships. And I see this all the time, okay? So I work with women primarily. When I used to work as a therapist, I worked with tons of couples. Relationships I find them fascinating and I love talking about them and I notice patterns very quickly. And when I look at the women that I know who have happy, healthy relationships, they are women who know who they are. They know what they want They ask for what they want. And they're also very kind and loving. And so when you blend those two things, it's just a recipe for, the upward spiral. Versus what a lot of women who self-silence do is they make themselves smaller. They go, I won't ask for this. I won't do this. I won't da-da-da-da. And then it comes out in very passive-aggressive ways that create a giant gap between you and your partner because you're no longer trustable. Okay? I don't have this on the list, but bratty women are deeply trustable because you always know where you stand with them. Okay? Bratty women make more money. Okay, so there's a fine line here. There's a lot of research that shows and we got to work on this, right? Like this is ideally, hopefully changing, especially, I don't know if you guys know, but come 2030, women are going to own 50% of global wealth. We're in the middle of this giant wealth transfer. So this, research might start to shift as women are CEOs and in the boardrooms and, making these financial decisions a little bit more. But typically, women who are too far outside of the social contract, which is this belief that women are agreeable and kind, women who are too far out of that, like too direct, too bitchy, too bullheaded, whatever, they don't tend to do that well in their careers and when it comes to making money. But on the flip side, women who don't know how to negotiate, who don't have a high self-worth, who don't have confidence or belief in themselves also don't do well. The middle ground is where all the money is. And the middle ground is being able to negotiate for what you want, being able to ask for what you want, being socially attuned and relational, right? There's also lots of research that shows that women who are not neurotic make more money. Women who are agreeable and extroverted but confident make more money. And that women who have a certain level of ambition and assertiveness. And I find that when you start to activate your brat, that's the part of you that's like, wait, I have needs, I have desires, I have gifts that I want to share with the world, right? So there's this natural ambition that gets activated when we start to work with the brat, right? Oh, sorry, I just choked on my own spit. Okay, next off. Bratty women have better sex. This one's very well researched, like very, very, very well researched. Women who have high sexual assertiveness have more orgasms, they're having more sex, they're having better sex, and they're having higher quality sex. So I think that is pretty self-explanatory. Knowing what you want in the bedroom means you're more likely to get what you want in the bedroom, right? Bratty women are harder to manipulate. Very hard to manipulate. And this is a big one, okay? I really want to dive into this a little bit because we live in a world where I know most women are socialized to be pleasing, to be kind, to be soft. Then we add into that the fact that we have a more socially attuned nervous system as women, right? So if you've been following me for a while, you know I've been studying with Veronica at Waking Womb, and her entire life's work is around the female nervous system. And so the female nervous system is very different from the male nervous system, okay? And so we are a little bit more prone to these blended states like freeze and fawn. And so when we are in that state of freeze or fawn, there is a lot of mental confusion that can come up. Like, how many times have you guys been in a conversation with someone and you leave that conversation and it feels like it just went on a spiral and you don't know what way is up and what way is down and you're really confused, and now you're like, maybe I was being the asshole. Maybe I was the problem, right? When you are someone who has been able to access assertiveness in your system, and I actually believe we can't get to assertiveness unless we've also developed our capacity for aggression, to be honest. Learning the fight response has been life-changing for me, life-changing. And so a bratty woman is maybe a little bit less likely to go into freeze or fawn. It might still happen. You're always going to have your natural tendencies, especially because this gets, what's the word? Rewarded. The freeze and fawn states get rewarded for women, and we're more prone to them because of our nervous system. But if you can activate your inner protector, the part of you that will fight for you and fight for what is important to you, it makes it so that you're going to have more nervous system capacity to handle conflict, to handle not being liked, to handle saying to someone, no, like that might be your version of reality. This is not my version of reality. So what I've noticed is that bratty women are much less likely to be manipulated, to be gaslit, to even like fall for scams and stuff. Like there's just a little bit more of a vigilance, right? When you meet someone who is really disassociated, there's this porousness where you're like, where are you? I can't locate you. You're just like not here. And it's really important that we learn how to be here, that we learn how to be in our bodies, and that we learn how to activate like our true authentic personality and self. And so bratty women have a stronger sense of self. They have a stronger identity. They know who they are. And so there's less of that porousness, and they're just less likely to be manipulated, whether that's by someone who's trying to sell them something, right? A dusty, crusty man who's trying to, I don't know, whatever he's trying to do. Or, someone who calls you and is trying to scam you out of something or scam you out of your money. Like bratty women are just not easy to manipulate. They're sharp. Bratty women raise confident kids, especially confident daughters. So the research really shows here that a daughter's self-esteem doesn't come from what her parents do for her or even what she's told about her worthiness. It has to do with how worthy her mom feels. And so when you choose to activate your own desires, your own agency, when you decide to be who you want to be and who your soul came here to be, and you decide to step into the world with a certain level of self-respect and confidence, that sends the message to your daughters that they're allowed to do that too. So I think for anyone who has children, especially if you have daughters, that's really, really important. That is how we make the world better, is through raising kids who love themselves, right? And I would imagine that this works for boys too, but I wonder if boys are more so looking at their dads, right? Like, does dad love himself? Does dad have a certain level of self-respect? Does dad stand up for himself? Like, they're probably looking at that. And so it's really important for both partners to be doing that. This is a bit of an aside, but I think if you're looking for your life partner and you want to have children, it is really important to choose a life partner that is strong in themselves, because that is going to teach your kids. That's going to be the standard that your children aspire to. So you don't want to date a weak man, a weak woman. You don't want to date someone that you can push around, that doesn't have a backbone, that is really porous and passive, because your children are going to see that and maybe potentially emulate that, right? So you want to be with someone who is kind, but who also has the capacity to really hold their own and stand up for themselves, okay? And then the last one is that bratty women don't age. And so obviously we all age. It's not that we don't age. But bratty women, there's lots of research that shows that your relationship to yourself and your beliefs around aging change literally the way that you age. And so what I've noticed with bratty women is that they haven't bought into this cultural narrative that their main purpose is to be a wife and to be a mother. They might want to do that, and that might actually be something that is super, like, I have a lot of bratty ass clients who are stay-at-home moms and stay-at-home wives, and they're so happy. So it's not that like those things are not fulfilling. They are fulfilling if they're what you are fully choosing, and it's what you fully want to do, and it's a huge part of your identity, and you take a lot of responsibility for it, and you're like, this is what I want to do, right? And so bratty women who know themselves, right, are able to step into the later years of life, whether that's your 30s, your 40s, your 50s, beyond, without adopting a lot of these cultural ideas around the aging woman and around women becoming invisible and like all of that stuff that is not true, right? I also find that bratty women age better, and whatever that means to you. To me, aging well means aging gracefully. Like, I love seeing a woman in her 80s who like looks 80. She's not trying to look 20, looks 80, but is like vibrant and has like vitality and has like, maybe not the energy she had when she was 35, but she's still got some like pep in her step. And those are typically women or people, because I love seeing 80-year-old men the same, but those are typically people who have a really strong sense of self, and therefore they've been taking care of themselves. They eat well, they work out, they move their body, they have things that make them happy. When you are someone who really believes that you're not allowed to pursue the things that you love or take care of yourself because you're now a mother or you're now a wife, like over time, that is going to erode your beauty, your vitality, your body. Like, you're just not going to be taking care of yourself in the way that you need to. And over time, you're going to lose connection with yourself, because you're going to lose connection with your own hobbies and your own interests and your own dreams and your own desires. And so bratty women age better because they have a self. They have something to protect and to nurture and to take care of over time. These are not typically women who wake up at 70 years old and go, I didn't live any part of my life for me. They're women who have been able to retain themselves. And so being bratty, these are our 7, okay? Being bratty really supports you in all areas of life. Being a brat supports you in making money, in having better relationships, better sex, being kinder. My experience has been that bratty women are the kindest women on the planet, because they don't have to protect themselves from you. They don't need to do weird, manipulative, passive-aggressive mind games, okay? They are very straight up, and they take very good care of themselves. And so if a woman who is a brat has chosen to be friends with you, to partner with you, to work with you, that was a full conscious choice. That was an adult choice, a mature choice. And so you're not going to end up being the victim of like weird sideways behavior. And so being a brat makes you kinder, it makes you hotter, it makes you happier, and it makes you more fulfilled. Okay, so if you want to learn a little bit more about how to activate the brat archetype, join us inside our Magical Hot Girl community. We're going to be launching the challenge on June 7th, and it will go till June 21st. And we're going to have Bratty Girl June, and I'm excited to see you there.